button.
Oh my
So
gosh. Oh
funny.
my gosh, y'all. This is Rose AJ coming to holla at y'all with the Carnivore connection. I'm about to find out what happened right along with y'all on this live, y'all. So I have Stacy here with me today. I call her my little sis. Of course, I asked for permission before I automatically did that. Okay, guys, this is the funniest thing, and it actually comes into what we're going to be talking about today. So Stacy and I had connected a couple of days ago, and I was like, I just feel compelled because she's going to share with you guys something about a video that she might want to share. She doesn't want to share, yada, yada, yada. And then I went down my rabbit hole. Oh, we have to have a conversation before I go on vacation tomorrow. We have to do this. And she agreed. I created the link, sent her the information, and I'm generally early. So I hate to say this, but I expect people to be early too, but that's not reality. It's not reality. On time is on time, right? So I'm sitting here doing some things, doodling around, and I send her a text. I say, I'm sorry that I missed you on our 3 o'clock, and we're clarifying. And this is the funniest thing, guys. What's going through my head is some shit from childhood. Okay. I've
Oh
lost
my
my
goodness.
new best friend. Oh my gosh, she stood me up. And then I went into coach mode. Rose, it isn't about you. Maybe she had an accident. Maybe she was sick, or maybe she overslept. There's these other things. And I'm like, okay, it's not about you. So I just deleted it. And then she responds. And then I send her another link. And then where are we at, Stacy? I'm like texting her. I'm like, I'm in the
It's
studio.
I thought I was too, and that was my fault. I've been sitting here since 10 till, like
Yeah.
just just chilling, and I'm so not used to doing anything live at all, and so I forgot to hit the link or the enter the studio because I don't know, I thought it was just gonna pop, you were just gonna pop
Yeah.
up and be like, hey, so
No.
sorry guys, sorry.
So, but this is perfect because God's timing on this. I mean, how many times do we kind of revert back to things that we did in childhood? Like, nobody wants to play with me, nobody wants to be my bestie, or whatever language you were using, right? It
Mhm.
was all about us, personalized, and it became traumatized when it was something as simple as not clicking the
Yep.
button. And had I not communicated, reached out and said, I hope you're okay, yada, 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 and kept it about me, I would have shut down the communication and the friendship that we're starting to build, right?
Right.
So this is a perfect example, guys. Okay, look.
It
This is
is. And
Rose
I
Eight.
just go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say I just had the same thing happen to me the other day, and then we go straight back to childhood. Like, what did I do? What's wrong with me? So yeah, sorry about
Do you,
that.
do you want to share your experience in a broad view without specifics, or if you don't want to, you don't have to,
Well,
dear.
this particular thing is really about me going back to work, and so I've been out of work since February, not coaching, and it was just and someone took over for me. Great coach, way better than me, coach, way more experienced than me, coach. And I automatically thought I'm not going to get my job back. I'm not good enough. She's better than me, and this and that. And it really, it's not even. It wasn't that at all. Um, Obviously, she's an amazing coach, and I want her to stay there. But I mean, that's what we do. We automatically go back to childhood thinking that we're not good enough, and before we even know what the real story is, we just
Yeah.
and it's yeah, I hate
Yeah.
that we do that, but we're working through it.
Just crash through, crash and
I,
burn,
I know, right?
and okay, so how did you resolve that? Did you have a conversation with yourself, or did you talk to the other coach,
I
or did you bring yourself back to reality and say, hey?
A lot of it, well, a lot of that video that I was afraid to post, which I just posted it a little while ago. Finally, it only took me a week, I think. No, I think it was Saturday. I recorded it, but and it was just really me just sitting there processing the thoughts. Why do I feel like this? Why do I think this? Why do I feel like I'm faking cancer? Like, why do I feel like this? And it's just those things that we tell ourselves that we're not good enough. And I have this weird thing where I have to know as soon as I get into something, I must feel like I need to know everything right then and there instead of the learning process. And so because I don't, then of course I start beating myself up. Why don't you know this? Why don't you know? So really, that's what it was. But I posted the video, and um, we'll see how it goes. It
So
was a
I
lot
hope that you'll be willing to talk about it a little bit here today.
for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys. So this is some backstage shit that y'all would have seen. Y'all wouldn't have seen. I'm just like, we're just gonna go live, okay?
Yeah. If I
So
turn red too, I'm gonna go ahead and say this real quick because it's happening right now. If I turn beet red and start fanning myself, I apologize. I'm having a hot
girl,
flash.
okay.
I'm
Oh,
sure there's plenty of us on here that know. I'm.
mhm.
Will you let the dog out? Sorry, my son
All
just
right,
walked in.
guys. It's okay. My name is Rose AJ with the Carnivore Connection, where we have heartfelt and soulful conversations. You guys saw some backstage, real life exchange before this introduction. And y'all, today we're going to be talking. Well, I'm going to be talking with Stacy, and Stacy's going to be talking with me about childhood trauma, dark places, and healing with carnivore. That's the purpose of our live today. And Stacy's actual story, her journey to carnivore, will air, I believe, on August the 18th. So before we get started in our conversation again, Stacy, I want to go ahead and make a couple of announcements. The Carnivore Connection coaching group, the beta test program is going to be September 9th through November the 25th, 12 weeks. And it's going to be on Monday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you're a woman that's 50 years old or older or close to it, and you need community coaching, support, and to learn about the carnivore way of life, please join. Please join. Okay. And then Saturday, September the 14th, I'm going to have a Carnivore Connection meet up at Point Reston here in Tacoma. At 10 a.m., we're going to do a 5K walk, and then 11:15 coffee social at Jewel Box Cafe, which is right across the plaza there at Point Reston. And you can sign up for that on Eventbrite, and you just look for my name, Rose AJ, and the events will pop up. So, all right, Stacy. So you guys know about me, a little bit of my backstory in case this is your first time tuning in. I always like to share with people that my eating disorder, my disordered eating, my compulsive eating, my eating addiction or food addiction started when I was 3.5 as a result of childhood trauma. And it just progressed forward. And in the last 5 years or so, I finally reined it in. And we'll be discussing that as well. But Stacy, if you want to take a few minutes to introduce yourself, how we became connected, or how you even became on the interwebs and started with carnivore, whatever part of your journey you want to share, and then we'll pick it up with some childhood things from there.
Okay, yeah. So I can go back because it does go all the way back to childhood. So I will start by saying, obviously, you say my name is Stacy. I am almost 46-year-old single mom to teenagers, disabled veteran. I served 10.5 years in the Air Force. Um, I have struggled with weight, really my weight. I say struggled with it. I never really thought too much about it in the beginning because I was what they call skinny fat as well, before kids. But I was raised by my father. He got custody of me when I was probably 4.5, 5 years old. I can be very long-winded, so if I get to go on too long, just let me know. But um, so he got me when I was about 5 years old, and it was just me and him. Uh, Unfortunately, my dad had a lot of issues as well. He was a hoarder. He was one of those people that hoarded things, mostly trash. He wouldn't throw trash away, and it was really bad, and a lot of other things. And it's on my video. I don't know if I should. I'm not going to talk about that here, but his mom and his stepdad raised him and my grandmother, and then he had one brother. So they were all very successful. My grandmother had a restaurant. My uncle owned a nightclub. My dad was the black sheep, though. He was the one that he was always smoking weed, and I never seen. He didn't drink too much, but it was just he always smoked weed, and he was addicted to some things. I don't know if I should say that here, but
You
I don't
can
know.
say whatever you feel
Uh,
comfortable saying.
Okay,
I
so
don't censor people. So,
okay, so he was addicted to. Well, he was addicted to everything, but cigarettes. He smoked 7 packs of cigarettes a day. 7. I'm not kidding. They were the ultra lights, but still. And he was addicted to pornography. Um, so he raised me, and I basically lived in my grandmother's restaurant. So I grew up on restaurant food. Like that's what I ate all the time because he didn't cook. The house was never clean enough for him to cook, and he would just never cook. He would never do that. So if it was not restaurant food, it was fast food. Every once in a while, he would clean up, or I would clean up enough for him to cook like a steak. I mean, it was literally probably a handful of times that I can remember. So I just grew up in a lot of neglect, a lot of disgust and mess around the house. And so I use food for comfort. I use food for company. I used food to pacify me when I was upset, anxious, whatever it was. I mean, for all the things, bored. I was always by myself. He was either sleeping during the day and he worked all night, so I was always by myself. So I used it for everything. Fast forward. Go ahead.
So, can I ask you, what were the circumstances that led to your father having sole custody of you? Because for me, from what I understand about my biological mom, I've never met her. My biological
Oh
mother
wow.
is that she was a lady of the streets, so to speak, if
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying, and back in the
Hmm. Yeah.
60s, late 60s, early 70s. So I have understood her to have children and leave children.
Right.
So I don't know if it was fortunate or unfortunate, but I was left on the doorstep of a church, and I lived
Hmm.
with my grandmother in Texas for a few years. Then my aunts, because she was really old, came in to help. And then when he came back from Vietnam, that's when,
Oh wow.
but I never met her, but I've heard she had several children. So,
Yeah.
but I'm an only child as far as I know.
Okay. Wow. That's not some. Well, here's my mom. Was married. I have three sisters. Two of them, two other sisters by my mom, one by my dad. But so my mom was married, had my older sister. She's the one that passed away at 45 years old. She lived with her father. Then my mom and dad met, had me. They divorced. I stayed with my dad. My dad eventually got custody. She remarried um, to my little sister's father. They stayed together the whole time. My little sister, until he passed away in 2014. But my mom was alive and well. We have a good relationship now. She was not around too much when I was younger. When I was 16, when I got my license and I could finally go, that's when I started kind of tracking her down wherever she would move to. I would go find them and visit them. And that is a whole. I mean, that we can go down that rabbit hole too. But but so
Well,
yeah, so my dad got custody of me for
okay.
that reason.
So, with that being said, because I think a lot of times growing up, I never had really close knitted girlfriend
Me
relationships,
either.
right?
Yep.
Primarily because traveled, moved a lot. That was the primary
Hmm.
reason. But I loved people and people loved me. And I think it's still
Yeah.
true to today. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I wasn't scared to make friends and be involved and stuff. But I never had that one homie, that we kept
Yeah.
in touch for 20 years and stuff like that. But I've
Right.
cultivated those relationships now that I'm older. I have a friend
Hmm.
that's like 35 years plus and a couple more that are like 15 years plus. So,
That's awesome.
how did your childhood upbringing impact your relationships with other females, ladies?
So
And that's my, yeah,
yeah,
yes. So,
it was bad. I mean, and to this day, I can't say that I have. I thought I did, but it was like I said, my one friend that I had for about 20 years, it was one sided. I was the one always running and chasing her, and it was based on alcohol. Really, to be honest, we got together, we got drunk, we cried, stuff like that. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. I was afraid to make friends because of I'm finding out now, realizing now is I didn't want to get close to people physically or emotionally, but physically because I felt like I stunk, which I did, I'm sure, because my dad lived in that kind of a environment when it was just gross, it was just
yeah.
gross. And so I smelled, and so I never did. And I would say, and I hope I don't know if my mom will see this, but I used to say that I didn't have a mom for the longest time because I barely saw her. And when
Okay.
I'd seen her, when I would go to her house, and there was a handful of times when I would go visit her and my stepdad and my little sister. But it usually ended up being he was drunk and we were having to escape the house in the middle of the night.
Mm,
Or
okay.
I have witnessed her get beat up one time, so that's
Mm,
super traumatizing. So it was either neglectful home in that the house wasn't taken care of over here, or go to my mom's and see domestic violence and
yeah,
alcohol abuse and all of that. So it affected all of my relationships even to this day still, I think.
yeah, yeah. So I don't, when we sit here and say apples and oranges, sirloin steak versus ribeye, whatever we want to use,
Hmm.
trauma is real. For some people, enduring physical abuse would be more, how do you say, easier to endure versus sexual trauma
Yeah,
versus, a home
I
that's
used to.
unkept. So
Right.
we all respond to our trauma or
Hmm.
abuse differently,
Right.
you know. So
Yeah, I used to say that. My dad used to yell a lot too. That's one thing he did. He would go kind of lose it and he would scream, and I used to say, "I would rather you hit me and beat me than to scream at me like that." But yeah, so I
mhm.
didn't think about that, but yeah, that's a thing too.
We respond so differently.
Yeah.
So, when you said that you started using food for comfort, for
Mhm.
joy, as a friend, do you remember what age range, or did it just kind of come on and then you kind of connected the dots later?
Oh, definitely connected the dots later, but also maybe I did know. But yeah, because I mean, like I said, I used to eat the restaurant food, and I remember just loving always being excited about that, just eating all the time. But more so when I got into my teenage years, when we hit the
Mhm.
hormones and whatnot, and all I wanted was chocolate and chips and junk, and I would get all this stuff. I think I stayed with my grandmother one time, and I remember it vividly. I remember going to the grocery store and getting so much junk food because I had to stay with her for 2 weeks or something. And I just stayed in the room, and that's what I had, chips and all the junk food. So yeah, I'm sure it started early, and I started, I guess, really realizing that I guess I probably did know at a young age that it was probably not normal for me to binge eat like that because I would make
Yeah,
myself sick. Like I would eat an
yeah.
entire bag of chips and a whole thing of dip at one time. I mean,
Mhm.
and that lasted all up into my adulthood of binge eating like that.
What is your most memorable overeating story or binge eating scenario? And if you can remember a specific instance, did it come after an experience of being yelled at or being depressed? Or do you know what I'm
I
saying?
I
So,
think mine was a lot to do with being alone, really. That's what I feel the most. There's not really one specific thing besides
mhm,
the 2 weeks that I stayed with my grandmother, and I remember buying all that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, it was just because I was always alone, and I just remember that it I guess the dopamine, which then, of course, I didn't know what that was, but I was excited and I had something to look forward to kind of a thing. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
So, being alone as a child, how does that impact you now as an adult? Do you prefer to be alone, or when you were a child, did you wanna be with other people, or was it just easier to be alone? And
it
is
was
it
always
easier?
easy. Yeah, it was always easier to be alone, and I do prefer to be alone a lot of times. Uh, Now even I'm trying to push myself out of that and realize that it's probably trauma, but yeah, it was just easier to be alone because it was just me and my dad, and he would. I hate to say this, I don't want to paint my dad to be a horrible person, but we had to hide because of the living conditions. So I had to lie to my grandmother. Um, and so I just preferred to be alone so I wouldn't have to explain anything to anyone or lie to my grandmother or lie to anyone. So yeah, being
Yeah.
alone just yeah,
See, I
I'm
was
just
the
alone.
complete opposite. I'm the complete
Really?
opposite. I need to be out in the world. I don't wanna come home till the sun comes down, but that was because of the drama and trauma that was
Mhm.
going on at
At
home,
home.
right?
Mhm.
But that carried over into my adulthood, right? I'm like, dealing with a baby, dealing with a dog, dealing with a husband, all that stuff. I'd rather be running, working 16 hours, just any
Yeah.
excuse not to be home. But
Well,
now it's
go ahead.
okay, but
Sorry.
now it's totally different because I've got my myself together. I love my space and I've set
Mhm.
boundaries, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing.
I
So
do.
that
I
kind of
mean,
thing.
I do know. I guess that's where the kind of the work thing comes. So I did. I was Air Force. I was in the military and I worked my butt off. So any job that I've ever done, I've always been like, I don't want to, I'm not bragging, but I've always made sure that I was the best at it because, yeah, I guess it did keep me away from whatever was back home. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It's so weird. When I was younger, yeah, I did want to be alone and I do want to be alone, but I also like to work really, really hard and be at work. Not
Yeah.
really so much out in the street. Like I didn't go clubbing and all that stuff every once in a while. I didn't do all of that, but
Uh,
yeah, it's a weird kind of a
yeah.
difference there.
Well, I'm glad that you're pushing yourself out into the universe, the virtual universe. You're making connections and you have a gym that you work at and that you love. And
Which is crazy.
it's
Just me being
crazy.
in front of people, yeah, because, again, it's, me the whole time I was in the military, I would not get up in front of people and speak or any of that stuff, so I had to push myself to even become a coach, to get up in front of people and coach them, so I'm working, I'm getting there, I'm getting there. Yeah.
That's a major accomplishment then. Do you
For me,
congratulate yourself or pat yourself on
I
the back
yeah,
on
yeah,
a
yeah,
regular
sometimes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
basis?
sometimes, but, I still am, like, beat myself up, I'm not good enough, I'm not
Mm,
experienced enough. Yeah, I have those moments all the time, but for the most part, I will stop myself and be like, "Okay, listen," you
yeah,
know, give
okay.
myself a good pep talk.
Yeah, you rein it in.
Yeah, rein it in. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. So, do you think that the way you grew up and experienced like the first 18 or 21 years of your life impacted the way you parent?
Oh, for sure, for
In what
sure.
ways?
Well, my main concern is being present with them. So we can be broke poor, which is, but as long as I'm present with them, that's what, and I don't want to be broke poor, but um yeah, being more, I'm very honest to them about my childhood and all the things that I went through. And so, yeah, just kind of just making sure that I'm present with them. Definitely now that I've seen, even though I tried to not hide the alcohol, but I thought I was okay because it was just a week. And when they were young, I would put them to bed, then I would drink, and I thought that was okay. Just learning. I've learned so much about myself really by being a parent to them. Um, so yeah, it has definitely affected it. I think for the mo for well, in some ways good, in some ways bad. Like sometimes I apologize to them for having such a wacko mom that's got all these problems, but not whack. They love me. We have a
Yeah,
great relationship. They think
yeah.
I'm hilarious. I think they're hilarious, but it is, it's not normal. My personality, I guess, my traumas and all that is not normal, and it is something that they're seeing me deal with and go through. But they've also seen the good part of that too, which is me becoming sober, me becoming a coach, changing my
Mhm.
life, losing all the weight, whatever, getting healthy. I don't even like saying losing the weight because it's not
Yeah.
even about that. It's about getting healthy. So, yeah, answer to your question.
Okay, so my childhood impacted my parenting style in a way that, like you, I wanted to be present, but I really
Hmm.
wasn't present, if you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
because the food kept me at bay, right?
Hmm.
That was my first line of thought. Now, I'm going to say that I was a stellar parent as far as making sure everything was there. She got to school, got her food, that kind of stuff, and that she was clean and everything. So, none of that. We did outings. So, nothing as far as not being structured and supportive, but as far as me being present and really involved without the interference of constant food thoughts or what am I going to
Hmm.
do next, yada, yada, yada.
Right. Yeah.
So,
There's that brought another thing to mind is growing up. I never like things like now I have worry about I stuff like taking them to the dentist and taking them stuff like, major things. I don't think about stuff like that because I didn't even go to the dentist until I joined the military at 23
okay,
years old. They never even took
okay.
me to the dentist. Barely went to the doctor. So that kind of stuff. And it's crazy because you would think my grandmother or my uncle would have stepped in, but no one ever did. But so that's like dentist things, like stuff like that responsible adults would think of. I don't think of things like that because I just didn't grow up having that.
But
So yeah,
it
that's another way
sounds
it affected me.
well, I was gonna say, but your kids are what ages? Are they 12 and 14 or
Yeah, 12 and no, 12 and 15. So I'm
12 and
about to be
15?
13 and about to be 16.
So you still have time, right? You
I do.
still
Yeah,
have
and I have to
time.
remind
Yeah.
myself that. Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
still have
yeah,
time. And so what you're implementing now, they can carry forward when they become young adults and leave the home and
exactly.
whatnot. Yeah. So what's your worst experience as a kid? And I'm going to share what mine was. My worst experience as a kid. I mean, okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to involve abuse or anything, but
Mhm.
just a worst experience in general. So one of mine was is being picked last, being the new
Yeah.
kid and being picked last in general, right? And
Mhm.
I just can't get over that feeling. Like, no, that's why I was like, I'm gonna take charge. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna set
Yeah.
up programs. I'm gonna do that, da, 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 because I don't want to be picked last for
Right.
anything. Even at work, it's like it's still an insult to me. And I know it's not personal, right? If we're paired up to do something, I'm like, I don't work with that bitch anyway. But I was picked last. It still
Uh,
comes up.
yeah, it does.
So
Yeah.
if I'm ever picked last for anything, it's just like a punch to the gut. And I have to
Right.
reel it in and think, you're 56 years old. This is where you're at now. You're not
Mhm.
6 years old or 8 years old anymore. So what about
Yeah,
you?
for sure. So my worst experience is because it was just such a long, lifelong thing.
Mhm.
Um, I don't really know what would be the worst experience except for just living in that that kind of environment where you know where you just feel dirty and gross all the time. So I feel dirty and gross all the time now still, no matter how clean I am or whatever, everything feels dirty and gross. Um, and the being alone, like, or I mean, there's so many things. And I'm not sure if I want to talk about the stuff with my mom because she is still around. And I haven't really talked to her. See, that's the thing. It's like I haven't sat down with my mother to talk about any of this stuff. Me and my sister are finally going to sit down and talk about it. But I would say probably seeing her get the crap beat out of her the one night, and us running in the middle of the night. There's a couple of times where we had to run in the middle of the night. Those are always those come back sometimes.
So witnessing abuse, escaping a home in the middle of the night, where did you go? And how
We
did you
slept
deal with the aftermath?
the first time, the time that I actually saw her physically get hit and beat up. I don't even remember where. I remember we took off. I remember I can see because my little sister was with her dad, which was my stepdad. I just remember running off and there was this grass, and we were just waiting, and we'd seen him drive by. And then after that, I really don't remember what happened. I was so young. I was really, really young at that time. The second time we went to, a matter of fact, it's a park right, well, 15 minutes from here. We ran and kind of sat on a park bench and slept on a park bench that night. And I guess it was all night. I was also still very young. I would also like to say before I start talking about, because a lot of people hear that and want to judge the mom. She took this abuse, and why wouldn't you? Da 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 da. Da. But well, people don't understand is my mom also went through. She was adopted um, from Germany by an American military family, and they were also crazy. They were also alcoholics. So like um, so, and then I'm just gonna say it, but my mom's mom, her adopted mom, was only nice to her when she was sick. So she didn't really know. She didn't grow up in a very loving environment. She grew up with a man that he would come home and just, like you see on TV, just everything off the table, just go nuts, right? And so her nerves are crazy, and so of course she's going to grow up and eventually end up in bad relationships and abusive relationships because, and I think her adoptive adopt however you say that, her parents and them would tell her that her mom in Germany, her biological mom, was also a woman of the night and had many children. And my mom was actually in an orphanage. She was adopted from an orphanage. So we don't have any idea who her real blood relatives are still to this day. I just wanted to say that before anybody
Mm.
starts to judge my mother.
So, I don't want you to take this personal, Stacy, because I love you to the core and I just met you. And I consider you honestly my little sister in spirit, my little sister in
Yeah.
carnivore. Because my stepmother was Korean for the first like 5 years of my life, I only grew up around Black people in general,
Hmm.
right? In the South and stuff like that, and in California. So me being introduced to her, they tried to say that this is your mom. You need to call her
Hmm.
mom. She didn't
Oh,
speak English. It was broken. Da 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 da. So I didn't call her anything. And when I tried to call her by her first name, they said you need to call her Miss Bettis. So I just
right.
didn't choose to identify her as anything. I would just start
Right.
talking, right? Which would not be tolerable to the day, but also you would want to investigate why is your child acting ignorant like that, right?
Right. 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 Yeah.
Right? So I want to say that I blamed her for 50% of what I endured because she knew what was going on and still
Hmm.
stayed, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as an adult, I can think back, well, she brought her sister, she brought her parents over here. She wanted to stay in the States. I don't know what Korea was like, but as a mother, a stepmother, somebody is supposed to protect their
Yeah.
young, right? So
Right.
that's
For
why I
sure.
was like crazy with my daughter, like nobody's going to take care of her but me or her
Hmm.
father,
Me. Yeah.
yada yada yada. I'll stay up all night, I won't sleep, that kind of
Exactly.
thing, because I didn't want her to be exposed. So I'll go to any length. And the same with my granddaughters, I'll go to any length. So I understand what you're saying, that if your mother was adopted by a set of parents that were just not the best for her,
Hmm.
right? And that they were probably doing the best that they could, and that your mother was doing the best that she could. And then
Right.
it repeats to you, you're
Yeah.
doing the best that you could. But what I'm saying is it has to stop
Stop.
somewhere. It's a
Yeah.
motherfucking generational curse,
It
right?
is. It really
Because I
is.
can understand that my biological father probably had a very fucked up childhood and probably
Hmm.
part of his military career. I don't know. I really don't care, right?
Yeah.
Is the way I'm thinking. But it has to just stop somewhere,
Right.
just
Right.
somewhere. So if it means that it has to stop with me in doing these lives and talking to people, talking to my grandchildren and my daughter in our family, it stopped here,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
Right. So are you saying what I'm hearing you say and what I know about you, it stopped with you
Yes.
because you're healing and you're trying to do better and be the best mother that you can and
Right.
not have
Absolutely.
history repeat itself?
For sure. For sure.
Okay,
Absolutely
good,
stop with me.
good.
Yeah, and it takes, it took 40 years for me to, which I didn't abuse my kids or anything like that.
Right.
But it took 40 years to wake up to see
Mhm.
that that's what it was, or
Yeah.
even what it was, generational curses and this and
Mm.
that. Um, so yeah, it definitely stopped with me.
Yeah.
And when I'm bringing it to light too, I think that's important too. Not to, not, I say I don't want anybody to judge my mother. I don't, but
No.
it also has to be talked about. And I also
Yeah.
need to talk about it with my mother, which I'll get to
Mhm.
that. Hopefully we'll
Mm.
get to that point. But I'm scared to, I don't want to hurt her. I don't want her to think that I mean, that whole,
So
that's just something I'm still, still working through, is trying to, um, even be able to talk to my mom about it without crushing her soul.
well, so let me just ask you from this perspective. Do you think that she would hear you regardless of you thinking or feeling that you might crush her soul? Do you think that she would be willing to have whatever conversation, like us, opens up and it
Yeah.
evolves to whatever it is?
Yeah.
Do you
I
think
think
she'd
she
be
would.
willing?
Yeah, I think she would. I don't think she's going to come out with it. I don't think she's ever going to be like, "Hey, let's sit and talk." But yeah, I think because matter of fact, it just reminds me, I've done that before. I was drunk. It was a time where I even did with my stepfather because they stayed married up until 2014 when he passed away. I think it was 2014. Um, but and that's what I would do. And here I go off on these tangents, but
It's
the
okay. I
reason
love it.
I w 16 years old and I was already drinking at 13, but I would find them, I would bring beer and I would go sit with them and drink and get drunk with my stepdad and my mom and them. But I think what I was trying to do was trying to get him to accept me, so that I could be in their lives, right? In my mom's life. And there was a time, and so we'd sit and we'd drink and we'd smoke. And he was still an asshole, um, but he came around. I mean, we get older. And I told him, I was like, listen, I understand. I forgave him. And I told him right in front of both of them that I forgive you and I forgive you. I understand that you also had a horrible, horrible childhood. He was shot by his own father in the stomach. Like, you know, so
Right.
they all had horrible childhoods. Not saying that's an excuse, but it just shows that, and they weren't taught any better. But I did. I told him that I forgave him and I understood why he was the way he was and all of that. So and she was there. So yeah, I think that my mom would absolutely. I think she would just cry just from feeling bad. I think that she knows and she is regretful and hates all of it. But
So, how do you envision the conversation going?
I just had this vision, as a matter of fact, which is so weird because I think that me and my sister are going to end up doing it. I envisioned because I finally got my sister. Not that I finally get. We have a date for a matter of fact tomorrow. Me and my sister are going to go have coffee, and we're going to just sit and talk about it because we didn't live together, but we had. But she was raised by my mom and stepdad who was abusive, so she's seen that constantly, the domestic abuse and all of that. And I was the one that lived in the crap house, but she could. My dad treated my little sister like his own. It was such a weird, crazy situation. Even anyway, but so what I envisioned is get talking to her and then asking her to, hey, can we go sit with mom, and just because I really want to tell them both, that I love them and that I don't have any hard feelings, and I kind of just want to tell them from my perspective that I've kind of been chasing y'all since I was 16, and just talk about it. So because I think we all three of us deserve to get it out and get our, not necessarily our story told to everyone, but just to get it out of your system, I think
Yeah.
is very beneficial. And
Yeah.
I think that would be good for my mom. And that's how I see it going. And her crying the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but also it's kind of like it can either start your healing process, start your
Or,
healing
yeah,
process. The or could be just as healing, right? You learn more about yourself. So I
yeah,
so admire you for saying that you don't blame them and that you forgive them and that you verbally have said that already. But my thing is, it's a hard conversation to have, but think
it
about
is.
all the energy you've probably expended with it, going in your mind, you just talking it out with yourself or however you normally think
Hmm.
about this, about having the conversation. And it's kind of like that's a lot of energy, right? Versus just sitting down, having the conversation, doing the hugs, whatever you need to do for the three of you guys to heal.
Yeah,
And then energy will be redirected in a different way.
for
Does that
sure.
make sense?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
love that you have that on your agenda for
Yeah,
tomorrow.
it is. It's, it's relieving. When I got off the phone with my sister to talk about it, it was like so much weight was lifted just knowing that we were going to get together and talk about it because we both tried. We always get cut off, or I was the one, and I was just going about it the wrong way. Was I thought I had to go sit and get drunk and then talk about it, right? Because what happens when you get drunk? You just want to let
Your
everything out,
inhibitions,
everything,
yeah,
yep, and you're just like, "Bleh." But that was not the right way to go about it, and so
yeah,
I'm really happy that we're gonna do it sober and,
okay.
and it's gonna be good, I think, and healing for all of us,
So
I think.
so with that process, I know we've talked about it on your interview, but maybe it will shed some light here too. Had you ever sought therapy, went to a pastor or anything? And if you want to share what you've done or not done, that's great. And
Mhm.
then do you think you will seek, help from a counselor or pastor or something in the future after this conversation? Do you think you'll need it?
Yeah, I definitely think I've been more thinking more and more about definitely seeing someone and talking to someone. Really, again, even if it's just to get it out of things that I've never told anyone, stuff that I've lived through or experienced, just to really kind of get it out of me. Because I kind of self-analyze pretty good, I think, so far. Well, now that I'm sober, especially, but um, as far as a pastor, I would should say that my grandmother put me in a Christian school from the time I was so from first to fourth grade, first, second, third, fourth grade. So that's a whole other
Yeah.
trauma to like because I was living in the conditions that I was living in, right? The pornography was everywhere, and Um, he tried to hide it, but I snooped because it was
Yeah.
just me, and he would be asleep, so I would snoop around. And then the smoking weed, the
Yeah.
cussing, everything that we were living at home. I would go to school and I would be told I was going to straight to hell. My father was
Mhm.
going to hell. We were all going to hell. And it was just, how, I mean, I don't know if you know, but so I was living this double life. And
Mhm.
so I stayed far away from religion for a long time. And I still am not a religious person. I'm one of those people. I'm very spiritual, but I've always maintained that I've always had a relationship with God. Even when I didn't know that's what I was doing, I'm like, who am I talking to? I mean, but really God is within us, and I've always
Yes.
had that relationship with God.
Mm.
And there's always had and I know that there's someone up there
Uh-huh.
watching out for me because there's been so many times that I should have been killed or died, or the situations that I put myself into, that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is a higher power and there is a God.
Yes.
And I have that relationship with God. I just don't do church, and I don't go, and I'm don't even I wouldn't even go as far as to say that I'm a Christian, because I don't have the beliefs of Jesus was a separate person or any of that. And we don't have to get into that because everybody has their own beliefs, and I believe that
Mhm.
your truth is true for you and my truth is true
Mhm.
for me, right? There's an
Right.
infinite amount of possibilities of
Right.
truths that can be had in this universe, or the infinite amount of universes
Mm.
that exist. So yeah,
Yeah.
I I guess I've kind of always, I don't want to say relied on myself, but the God within me, I guess, my
Girl,
relationship with God,
I know that's
if
right.
that
I
makes
know
sense.
that's yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does. Soldier girl. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the craziest thing, people think because I have a family, because I'm married, yada yada yada, that someone has my back, right? That's,
yeah.
I used to always want other people to have my back. I used to always want other people to take care of me because I've been taking care of them, right? And my thing is, I finally woke up at around 30, 35. I was like, fuck this shit. Everybody's happy but me, right?
Right.
Everybody is happy but me, and I'm always there. They call. I'm very responsible. I'm just going to be blatant. I'm very responsible, right?
Mhm.
So call. I'm there, Johnny on the spot. Everybody is doing well, but me,
Yeah, but
right?
you, yeah.
And then my husband, God bless him, right?
Oh,
Just I'm just gonna say God bless him. But this is the thing. He's on disability. He had a back injury about 9 years ago. So he's on workman's comp and disability, right?
mhm,
And then it dawned on me, I'm just like, look, he won't take care of himself no matter how much I ask him to take care of himself. If not for him or me, for the grandchildren, right? I said, you want to
mhm,
be around to see them graduate sixth grade. You want to be around to see them graduate from middle school or whatever it is, because they're going to have about 3 graduations before high school
mhm,
is done. And then I said, think about it. If that's too far, just think about the next year versus the whole 12
mhm.
years of school. And then I said, you want to see them graduate from college, don't you? And then you want to see them have their own kids someday, right?
Right.
So he's not taking care of himself. This is just straight up.
Uh,
He's not taking care of himself. And I'm like, I'm spending more energy asking him to take care of himself, go to the doctor, lose weight, do this, do that, do that. And I'm like, fuck that. It
well,
is
um,
what it is. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
You got to do you, homie. So, I learned that around 30 years old. And then when the
Yeah.
girls got here, it just got worse. I'm just like, Fuck
Yeah.
it. I curse a lot.
I do too, girl. The F-bomb all day, every day is so bad. And the more I try to stop, the worse it gets. But that's so
Yeah, but
crazy. I was married too, and
yeah.
he was juvenile diabetic. He died at 37 years old because he would not take care of himself. And that was and
Mm,
same thing. I spent so much
mm,
energy. Please, please, I don't want to let because back then he's what one of the things one of the I feel like he kind of saved me from my childhood. As soon as I turned 18, I met him when I was 15. We got together when I was 17. He was a lot older than me, but anyway, we ended up married. He saved me from, I could have been just so much worse. But, um, but yeah, and I know that was his own battle. There was not anything that I could have ever said to him that was going to make him want to take care of himself. He had to love himself enough, and he just didn't. But I did same thing. I realized that I cannot keep on you because it's killing me because I'm worried and stressed and afraid I'm going to come home and find you dead. And so we split up, and
yeah,
unfortunately a year and a half later,
yeah,
that's what happened. His parents came. He was staying with his parents.
yeah.
They came home and found him on the ground. He'd had a stroke in his brainstem at 37 years old. He
Just a
again,
young
yes,
man.
juvenile diabetes, so
Mm,
it wasn't his fault that he had that. And back then, no one knew anything about and that's another thing, like, God, if I would've just known about keto or carnivore back then,
yeah,
I feel like I coulda saved them,
yeah,
but,
yeah.
but so, yeah,
Girl,
I
that's
I
hard.
feel you
And
on
at
that too.
37, that's
37
young.
is so
Yeah,
young, he was so young.
yeah. So literally when you say that you did it yourself or you took care of yourself, when I look around now, I'm like, yeah, I got a daughter. Yeah, I got grandchildren. I got a son-in-law, tons of good friends, right?
Yeah,
And a couple of homies, 2 a.m. if I need them for anything,
that's
right?
awesome,
But really, who's going to take care of me?
right.
Nobody's gonna take care of me. It's me, myself, and I, all three of us wrapped up into one.
Yeah,
So, girl, that's why I had to get my wheels moving to
yeah,
recognize
for
that it's
sure.
all about me taking care of me because I don't want to be 70, 75 years old being taken care of, but not
Care
really
of,
taken care of. I
right.
gotta look out for me. And it's been that way since birth.
Yes, exactly, same. I feel like no one's ever taken care of me,
Yeah,
and then, yeah, you get to where you're like, "Can somebody just please fucking take care of me for once?"
yeah,
But then again,
yeah,
you just realize, well, nobody's really gonna do that, and because we're all I mean, it goes for we all should really feel like that. I mean, we shouldn't depend on someone else to take care of us, you know
right,
what I mean?
right.
But
But it would be nice to have a partner,
or
right?
exactly, a partner or some yeah, and that's not to say that I haven't had, like, again, like, since I was 16, my mom helped, with after this I had married again, had my kids, divorced,
Oh,
I had to go stay with my mom and them, so they helped out, she helped with my kids for quite a few years, so it's not
nice.
that I didn't have anyone, but it's you still gotta have I feel like you still have to have at least one person to where, like this, you can
Mhm,
really tell all of your everything to, and that
mhm,
they're still gonna have your back and they're gonna be
yeah,
there for you,
without
um,
judgment.
without
Yeah,
judgment and really
yeah,
work as a partner in life.
yeah, yeah, but
Everybody needs at least somebody.
child, if I got to do it solo, Imma do it
Imma
happy.
do it. You damn right. And that's my thing too, and that's exactly it. It was like, I just
Mhm,
want to be happy and
yeah,
not stressed out all the time, and the only way that's gonna happen is if I figure out what my part in it,
pour
what's
into
my
your
part
tank.
in my yeah, in creating my life and
Mhm.
whatnot, so
So before we wrap up, my friend, let's talk about, healing with carnivore. Can you give me maybe some things that carnivore has helped you heal? Because I know you've been on this journey since February 7th, which is easy for me to
strict
remember
carnivore.
because that's my anniversary.
Oh, look at that, that's crazy. You're like, "No, nope." Yeah,
Uh,
it's healed. Well, like I said, I'm really kinda trying to get back on track, to be honest. Well, I am back on track now, but I fell off for a month, and I'm telling you, let me just say it like that. I was feeling amazing, amazing, even with stage 4 freaking ovarian cancer, like, so much energy, amazing, except for I'd have the chemo, I'd go through all that, but then I'd come back and I'm feeling good again until I started having the crap foods, and that has sent me into such a spiral of anxiety and panic and paranoia that it's like I don't even it's insane.
Mm,
So that's where I'm at right like that video that I posted was
mm,
me basically I think having a panic attack. I woke
okay,
up that way and had to
okay,
work through it. But carnivore, I would say your body being in a state of ketosis is what I'm gonna say. Whether that's keto, because I think and I don't mean this keto crap that they're posting all over everything. I mean actual meat, some
mhm,
vegetables. I was more ketovore. I didn't even eat a lot of vegetables then. A little bit of dairy.
mhm.
Um, but it's healed all, not all, but a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic, a lot of beating myself up, um, that inner voice that's, yeah, and so many other things. My health is like gorgeous. It's beautiful now.
Go ahead, go ahead. So thank you for sharing that, Stacy. So as far as me, my ultimate thing that has been healed with carnivore is a peace of mind. That
Yeah.
zen, just a peace of mind, and it's
Hmm.
been helping me to let go of more of my addictions, which we had
For
discussed
sure.
earlier. And so I'm just gonna declare this here with you and the universe, whoever's listening. So we talked about you eating a couple of times a day, you're listening to your body,
Hmm.
and you just roll with it, right? So for me, I eat OMAD primarily because I ate so much during childhood. It was like 24/7, right? So I
Hmm.
always like to feel full. So I quickly learned that one meal a day works best for me. Just hit it, quit it, and be done and
Hmm.
full, right?
Yes,
Until
I
the
used to
next
do that.
24 hours, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So what I'm gonna be working on when I get back on the 6th is I believe in intermittent fasting for myself 24/7, da 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 da. It's
Yep,
my
same.
jam. But what I'm gonna do this time around is because I tend to overeat.
Hmm.
I know that I'm overeating
Hmm. Hmm.
by maybe 10% if you can just graph it,
Yeah,
110% instead of stopping at 100%. And I think that's my last addiction to go, right? That I have to
yeah,
really work on, and it's not necessarily for weight loss, but it's because I know that I'm using food still to feel
yeah.
full from childhood, so I won't have to
Right.
feel certain things. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I will be working on that from now until the end of the year because that's
Hmm.
my last honest raise my hand to God addiction that I
Yeah.
have, and carnivore has helped me with that,
Yeah.
just to help me let go of so many things. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with
Uh,
that too. I don't talk about that enough. Yeah, definitely it has
mhm,
helped me get rid of addictions and
mhm,
the
mhm.
whole munching all day kind of a
Yeah,
thing. I used to do
yeah,
OMAD, but I work out so much, or I will be again, that it's hard to eat the one time. But I
yeah.
do, and I fast. I fasted for 48 hours. It's the longest I've been during
Okay.
around the first chemo, and then I fasted another 30 something or 20 something for my surgery. So yeah, I do a lot of
Mhm.
fasting. It's so beneficial, and
Yes.
I'd like to get back to OMAD really, but I
Yeah,
work
but
out too much, I think.
if it doesn't work for you, it don't work for you. You gotta go with what you need for your
Right, right, right.
body and your mindset for right now. All right, Stacy, I wanna thank you, little sis, for taking this
Yes,
time
thank
to
you, big
meet up, and
sister.
sorry
That
about
was great.
the
Oh, me too. I'm sorry. Now I know. Hit the button. Hit the button, Stacy.
okay, but I do wanna ask before we
My cat.
close, if you are you okay? Do you need
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, she's good.
okay, okay.
Sorry.
So, can you tell people where to find you and maybe give an overview of the video that you were like not wanting to
Yeah.
release just yet? Give us a little insight on what we
Okay.
can find.
So you can find me at uh, Carnivore, Cancer, and CrossFit on YouTube. Um, or the handle is at Beating Cancer with CrossFit. I think you can type that in there. I'm still new at this whole thing. And the video, I just posted it today. It was about my conditions growing up in the conditions that I was in. I woke up that morning because of also having to get back to work, thinking I wasn't going to get not that I wasn't going to get my job back, but thinking that I was going to be kind of pushed to the back of the line kind of a thing and everybody had moved in front of me. And I was panicking about that, I think. not feeling good enough. And so that video is really just, it really just shows I was crying and showing how uh, really talking about that, going into why I am the way I am, kind of a thing, and the conditions of my dad. And then I went for a run, and like halfway through it, I was like, oh, another thought. So it just kind of, it actually, and I didn't mean to do it, but it almost shows the process of me processing trauma when it comes up like that, and how I do that with running and working out. Um, yeah, that's really it. And I'm just so afraid because I don't talk about the nastiness of my house, and I've hid it for so long and no one ever knew about it. And so I'm just afraid. I'm afraid someone from my kid's school is going to find it and they're going to get bullied or something. But they said go for it. My kids, I didn't tell them exactly, but I let them know it's some things that, they're like, just, go ahead, mom, it's okay. And if anything ever did happen, I would delete it. But so yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just say, wow, I will check it out and support you on that. But, I love that your kids are supporting you and telling you
Yeah,
to go for it.
they're amazing kids. They really are. I'm not just saying that because 'cause I'm their mother.
Well,
You know,
you're an amazing mom, so how does kids get to be amazing without an amazing
thank
mom,
you,
right?
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know it's so hard for us to say that about ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or it is
Well,
for
not
me.
not me, girl.
Well,
Girl,
I'm
I
getting
mean,
there.
oh my
I'm
gosh,
getting
it was
there.
the funniest thing, guys. So I think you and I texted, or I texted you something this morning, and you said you were getting ready to, go to CrossFit. And I go, girl, I'm walking into the gym now.
Yeah, we went to the gym at the same time and everything. Oh, it was so
Yeah,
good.
that's
It was such a good
crazy.
day.
All right, love. I don't want to keep you because we're a few minutes past 9,
Oh,
but
sorry. I can
no, no,
talk.
no, 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 no. I don't want to keep you off of your schedule. But if you need anything, as always, please shoot me a text or DM
Yes.
me,
uh,
and we will be in
Same to you.
touch. All
Yes, ma'am.
right.
Thank you. That was
And
awesome. That was
thank
really,
you for
really good. I liked it.
yeah,
Thank you
I'm
so
glad.
much.
All right, love. You take care of
All
yourself.
right. You too. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.